when I read the articles in 1984, when I was in Pakistan hearing news about refugees, and also when I talk in Pakistan when I was a kid, of course my dad was intelligence director, they were talking about it. They mentioned that there is a Afghan lady sent a letter to President Reagan, and she is the cause the Mujahideen got support from the White House. That's how it happened. How you did that when he was 19 years old. Like when I was 19 years old, I couldn't write a letter in their language, so how you write that much huge letter and send it to the White House?
At the end of the day, passion. I had a tiny little apartment that this was my kitchen, this was my living room, and this was like literally the circle. And I had a black and white TV that you had to hold the antenna to be able to see the picture. And this tiny TV, it was CBS, a documentary on Dan Rather was doing on the Afghan refugees. This is 1980. And I am looking at that documentary and I saw a woman barefoot carrying one baby in this arm, another baby on that arm, barefoot in the snow, and then she had a basket on her head. And I looked at that and I said, oh my God, how are these people gonna live? What's happening to my country? What can I do? And that night I was haunted by this image and I couldn't sleep. So I got up again and I'm like, who is the most powerful person in the world that I can tell them do something? And I said, President of the United States.
If you had a gut, the United States would be accepted.
Well, I wrote a letter to the President of the United States. I said, Dear President Reagan, my name is such and such. I am an Afghan refugee girl, and I'm not even 18 yet. And I am here in America, and what's happening in my country is horrifying. The Russians are killing us, and 5.3 million are refugees around in Pakistan. We need to talk about this. You need to help me. I mean, that was the part of the letter, but it was nine pages from my heart. And tears were coming, and it was on the page, and I folded the letter. I was at the time working at United Nations as a coffee person. I was bringing coffee, I was filing papers. Yeah, I was just a helper, just making a little money to survive. And I went there and told the receptionist that the president is going to call me. I had this very strong gut feeling that he will call me. And that happened, and he invited me to the White House, and I walk in the room, and the president is behind his desk, and he is so big, his desk is so big, I'm so little, and I just walked in, and the first thing he asked me, he said, where is your mother? And I said, my mother is in Afghanistan. He said, who wrote the letter? I said, I did. And he said, okay then, let's sit on the sofa. So he invited me on the sofa, he came behind the desk, and the man, the chief of staff who brought me to the table, to the office, he said to me, you have 3.5 minutes. And when I sat down, the president said, would you like some tea? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have time. And he looked at me, was such a beautiful human being. He said, oh, where are you going? He thought I had more important appointment than President of the United States. I said, no. This man told me that I have to leave in 3.5 minutes.
You told the president, okay, this is chief of staff saying that?
Right. And he said to me, don't worry about that man. And he called him and said, bring some tea. He brought the tea, and the logistic of the conversation went to everything you said in your letter about what Russians are doing to your country, this evil empire, as he called them. We need to stop it, but there is nothing I can do, but there is so much you can do. And I'm looking at the President of the United States, and nothing you can do
I
and
asked
so
you
much
for
I
help.
can do. Yes, what can I do? And he told me about the Stinger missile. He said what Afghanistan needs is the Northern Alliance, General Massoud, and the Mujahideen are very successful breaking the Soviet Union soldiers on the ground. And but when it comes to planes, which they were throwing booby traps in the shape of Coca-Cola bottle and dolls, and I'm sure you've seen it, and these kids will pick it up. The whole strategy behind it was that the kids would need amputation of the leg or the arm or half a face. They wouldn't die. So the family have to take them to Pakistan so they wouldn't be able to fight the Russians. And he said, I've been trying to get this Stinger missile approved by the Senate, but I can't. But they are not approving it. But why don't you go to Afghanistan with a group of people and bring these, come and testify in front of the Senate with children that were victim of these booby traps? And I said, how do I do that? And he goes, don't worry, we organize. And then a group of us went and came back, testified in front of the Senate. We got the Stinger missile approved for Afghanistan, became the end of Soviet Union as we knew it. The evil empire was finished, and Berlin Wall came down a couple years later. It was an incredible moment in American history. And long story short, I did a lot with President Reagan. I honored him for an event called the Night for Afghanistan here in Beverly Hills, and Ambassador's Ball for Afghanistan in Plaza Hotel in New York. And years later, when the president, 2.5 years later, when he was not president anymore, I went to his office to visit him in Century City. And I said, President Reagan, would you believe it, that in your lifetime, you would see Berlin Wall come down, and there will be an end to the Soviet Union, the evil empire, as you called it. And he looked at me, he said, I said, you did that. And he said, no, you did that. That's the kind of person he was. Because in the office, the one thing in the Oval Office that he told me, he said, Sonia, one person can change the world.
But you did change the world.
You want to be that person? I was such a
But you
teenager.
did
Like,
it.
yeah, if he thinks I can change the world, why not, right?